Hi folks, this is Tara, the Homestead Hopeful, and today we're going to talk about something that drives me crazy. And that is all the people who seem to think they don't need to prep because they can just forage for nuts and berries and hunt deer like our ancestors did. Let me tell you right now, that is not going to happen. If you think it is, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but you're completely delusional. Maybe that's harsh of me to say, but if you're one of the people who thinks this way, you need a serious reality check. For one thing, our population is much, much higher than it was back when people used to be hunter-gatherers. Back then, there were plenty of animals to go around. But as our population grew and we began to build houses and shopping malls and sports stadiums, we took away their habitats, hit them with cars, and hunted them for their horns, skins, meat, and as nothing more than trophies, until many species are either extinct or on the brink of extinction. From an article on Reason.com, researchers estimate that prior to the arrival of European settlers, white-tailed deer numbered between 23 and 34 million. By the early 1900s, deer populations had fallen to between 300 and 500,000 animals. This population crash was a result of market hunting, that is, killing and selling the animals to butchers. The deer population has recovered since then, but if crap hits the fan, it won't be long at all before the deer population drops just like it did back then. Only this time it'll be worse, because our population is a heck of a lot higher than it was when European settlers arrived. Let's look back only as far as the 1800s. In 1820, the population of the United States was less than 10 million. By 1920, it was over 100 million. In 2020, it will be nearing 350 million. And if you've ever read the Little House on the Prairie books by Laura Ingalls Wilder about her life growing up in the late 1800s, you'll know that her family already struggled to find meat at times. In fact, the reason her family kept moving westward throughout her childhood was because Pa grew concerned about the increasing population in the eastern U.S. and how hunting was getting harder and harder. They kept moving to get away from the pressure people put on local wildlife so there would be more game available. And this was over 100 years ago, folks, when the population was about a third of what it is now, or less. What do you think would happen if an EMP hit most of the continental United States tomorrow? How long do you think the local food in the grocery stores would last? Conservative estimates say 3 days, but realistically most of the food would be gone in a day, because word would begin to spread that an EMP happened, and the people who actually know what that means and understand the implications of it would swarm to the stores and empty them out in no time. Those that didn't would probably go buy a case or two of water and some batteries and flashlights with whatever cash they had on hand, leaving anyone who didn't buy that first day completely out of luck. Not to mention that some stores will refuse to sell anything because the employees won't know how to deal with things when they can't run the cash registers. I've personally seen this firsthand when the power's gone out locally. Stores and restaurants simply say, "Sorry, we can't sell anything until the power comes back." So what would happen next? After 2 or 3 days, the general population would finally begin to understand the gravity of the situation. They would rush out to buy what's left in the stores, only most of the stores will be completely empty. And don't forget, the cash registers wouldn't work, and the ATMs wouldn't work, so people couldn't even get out cash to buy food, even if there was some left to buy. Then people will panic. Some will break into stores and just loot whatever they need. Others will start begging and pleading for shop owners and managers to give them stuff. After all, they have families at home. But many of those owners and managers will be wanting to keep their merchandise for themselves by that point. Riots will begin, and people will get killed. Don't believe me? Watch footage of what happened after Hurricane Katrina. And this was not a nationwide SHTF situation. Imagine if it had been. Once the looting dies down due to lack of products left in the stores, people will start hunting, fishing, and foraging, because they'll have no alternative. Many will die because they have no clue what they're doing and end up eating something poisonous, or because they get shot by other hunters who are flooding wooded areas en masse, or because they get shot for trespassing on someone else's property. Do you think landowners are going to look kindly on people poaching on their land when whatever's there will feed their own families? You know, they might look the other way during peaceful times, but if the crap hits the fan, most people will see it as every man for himself. Most big game would probably be cleared out in a month or two, and by then those that remain will be especially skittish and will be exceedingly hard to find. Small game too. And plants? Anything widely recognized as edible, such as blackberries, apples, and dandelion greens, will be wiped out in no time. The lesser-known plants won't last much longer either, and those are rarely available in large enough quantities to feed a family for longer than a few days at best. They're also typically extremely low in calories. Think about it. We have over 300 million people in this country. There are currently only about 30,000 deer. If even 10% of people started hunting them, how long will they last with a ratio of 1 deer to 1 hunter? Even at a rate of 1% of people hunting, it would still be only 10 deer to 1 hunter, meaning they'll still be pretty cleared out before long. There's also the existence of chronic wasting disease in deer. This disease is spreading, and while it currently has not been found to affect humans, there's always the possibility that it will evolve into a form that can. After all, mad cow disease can affect humans in rare cases. Even if it never evolves to affect humans, it's still lowering the deer population. Now let's assume you're an expert in identifying edible plants. How many have you seen lately? Think about your own yard, or a park you recently walked through. I can personally identify a few dozen wild edibles fairly reliably, but in the area I live in now, there's not enough of those to even put together a bowl of salad for one person. I live in an apartment community with hundreds of residents. If there were any wild edibles around here, would I have a chance to pick them before someone else did? Not likely. And that's not to mention how much harder it would be if SHTF happened in the winter. And what if you don't know what you're doing? Are you willing to take a chance feeding your family a plant you're not 100% certain of? Is this a moral mushroom or a false moral? If you're not sure, and I mean completely, 100%, absolutely certain, you can make your family very sick or even kill them. It's not something to play around with. Even if you are certain, what if one of your family members is allergic to something you forage and you didn't realize it? There probably won't be access to 911 or EpiPens in SHTF. Eating unfamiliar foods in a time when emergency services is non-existent would be foolish, when you could have just stocked up on foods you regularly eat. There's also a chance you could pick one of the foods that can cause gastrointestinal symptoms when consumed in large quantities. Symptoms like vomiting and diarrhea can become deadly in SHTF, leading to dehydration that could eventually become fatal. It's not worth the risk. And then there's fishing. I live on a massive lake. My apartment community is literally right on the lake. We have a fishing dock as one of the perks of living here. The trouble is, this lake is hugely popular, and it's under serious pressure from boat anglers constantly. Bank fishermen don't have much of a chance to catch anything. My husband and I have literally gone months at a time without catching a single fish from the bank, and we've tried bass fishing, fishing for catfish with worms, chicken liver, cut bait, stink bait, even hot dogs, and still haven't caught anything for months at a time. And this was in a period when we used to go fishing 4 or 5 times a week for several hours at a time. Now imagine if thousands of people were suddenly fishing at once, and were doing so just to survive. Even private ponds and creeks wouldn't be full long. Don't forget how dangerous it will be to go out foraging and hunting in SHTF. You're going to encounter people, dangerous people. Criminals who are dangerous now will be even more so when they're starving. Even the quiet soccer mom next door could become a threat when she's looking into the tear-filled eyes of her children who keep asking her for food but there's none to give them. Try to collect the same blackberries she's picking for those little ones and you'll have 3 choices. Let her kill you, kill her, or walk away. Either way you get nothing. Even if you kill her and walk away with the berries, the guilt is likely to eat you alive, because she was just picking berries to feed her children, who are now motherless and may die too. Look, I know it's a romantic notion to think of going back to simpler times and being able to hunt and trap and fish and forage for our food, but it's not realistic. Our population is too dense, and we already have too many highly experienced hobbyists who would flood every inch of this country, wiping out all the game before the average person even realized what was going on. Yes, it would be wonderful to be able to just go out and hunt and gather everything our families need to survive, but we're past the point of no return. Our population is too high for that to be reasonable at this point. Eventually we might return to that. At some point in a long-term SHTF situation, a large percentage of the population would die, and hunting and foraging might become feasible again. But now, I wouldn't count on it. A better idea is to start prepping now. Stock up on food, water, and other essentials. Start hunting now, and putting any meat you get away with a pressure canner, dehydrator, or smoker. Don't wait until it's too late, and rest on your beliefs that you'll be able to gather whatever you need after a catastrophe happens. And start a garden if you can. Learn how to garden now, and you won't have to struggle to grow when your entire family's existence depends on it. That way, you won't have to be out there foraging and praying you find enough. Please don't think you can depend on your hunter-gatherer skills in SHTF. Honestly, it's safer and easier to just stock up on foods your family already eats that you know are safe, and maybe use occasional hunting, fishing, and foraging to supplement your preps. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Also, be sure to like the video and leave a comment, and share it if you think someone else might find it useful. This is Tara, the Homestead Hopeful, saying stay prepared, stay safe, and stay hopeful.